Hey everyone, welcome to Community Roots, a place where we gather in community to talk about mental health so we can travel the journey of life together. I'm Samuel Richards.
I'm Julie Richards.
I'm Sarah Wakefield.
And you've been asking for it. Inside Out 2 Watch Party right here. I'm just kidding.
Nice.
But I am excited to get Sarah on that train. So we should probably do a debrief episode. It's a lot of relevant stuff. But
All the
I was
cool
actually-
people are going. Just
Yeah.
Is it out already?
Yes, it's been out for, well, by the time this is posted, who knows how long it'll be out. But
Mom
And you guys
had
have
our
already
family-
seen it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait for hours outside of the movie theater before midnight. And front row seats. No, just kidding. It was great. I appreciate Mom bringing us. No, it was awesome. Would recommend, even, for the viewers, go out and see it. Get prepared for our watch party episode. And yeah.
we could dress up like a certain character and, even though
That
it's
sounds-
not actually seen through podcast, it's like we could.
No, that's great. No, here, I'll put on my costume right now. Here, let me just. Oh, there it is.
There you
Look,
go.
I'm the angry guy. Anyway.
Is there a new emotion? Is it sadness that's a new emotion?
Sadness
a
was in
bunch
the
of
first
new-
one. There are several
Yeah.
new ones. The primary one is anxiety. That's new. That's the biggest role.
I saw a meme about anxiety showing up at a red carpet event, and the meme was, "Look,
Aw.
I've arrived at the party," and it's like anxiety.
Oh,
Uh,
there's a little
I thought
bit.
this one was pretty relevant in that
Yeah.
way, that we talk about anxiety more and more, I think, as a society. Since see,
Yeah.
we're digging into the good stuff before we do the watch party. I'm gonna get us back on track.
There you go.
Um,
Bring us back.
No, this is great. And we recently, these last couple weeks, we've been going through the emotional gifts, essentially going through 8 basic emotions, talking about what are the benefits of these emotions, as well as what happens when those things get out of control. So if you're interested, definitely go back, listen to our anger, fear, pain episodes that preceded this one. But I'm excited for this episode. I'm sure you can tell I'm a little bubblier than I was last episode.
Yes. I sense it.
Because Joy has the hands on the controls this time around.
There you go.
We're going to talk about joy. We're going to talk about passion if we've got some time. So let's start out. So yeah, joy obviously coming at you with some happiness, excitement, elation. Maybe that's something you can hear in my voice. But here's something that came as a surprise for me, even relief.
Mm.
I can see how that has that release still, but it's kind of, that was a new one to me as I was kind of looking through this list.
It makes sense. Something that just happened in my life in the last week or so, that after kind of wrestling through some harder things, some conflict, some rupture, after working that through, I can say there was definite relief and then joy that came out of it. Like when we repair something, when we put in the time and attention to something, it does feel so good. It does feel like, wow, that feels so much better. So there is relief, there's joy of, we just were able to be repaired, more connected, that sort of thing. There's great joy in that. So kind of like being able to see something cycle through the hard to the other side. We don't always arrive somewhere necessarily, but sometimes we do feel more of a sense of resolution or repair or effort that we've made that brings to a place of joy and relief.
I like that has connected for me. What I think sometimes maybe is runner's high almost,
Mm.
where you're running, but the excitement almost comes from like, I mean, at least for me, hey, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm
Mm.
feeling good. I've hit a good pace. I feel good as like my body feels good. And I can see that in a lot of cases where relief is like, sometimes I even think back to something that I've accomplished, even crossed off my list, and feel that sense of relief and almost joy. I can see that for sure.
My relief would be in not running. if I if I don't have to run, I would be there's joy and relief.
Right.
But I do understand that for many people, even Nita Sweeney, like shout out back to our episode that we had with Nita, and she did um, every movement meditation as well as like depression hates a still target. I'm not sure how I'm messing up her titles, but she's a fabulous author that we had on here, and so definitely some people really resonate with the running thing.
I gotta say, as a runner, I don't know if I'm just like not running hard enough, but the high comes when I'm done. So I mean, I'm an experienced runner. And I gotta say that those first several miles, they're brutal. So what am I doing wrong, Samuel? Maybe we can take this offline and
There's
you
your
can tell.
problem. Several miles. Stop at 2.5 or whatever 5K is.
Oh, I'm just doing it
The
wrong.
I
Mm,
can see, or even like maybe we can identify with crossing something off your list that feels really good. And whenever you think about it, maybe that
mm.
for me is washing my car, where I go from, oh, there's just that, bird mark right on my car, to, hey, it looks clean. I come out, I'm reminded that it's clean, and I kind of feel that sense of contentment, perhaps.
Mm.
Um,
What I like about this, the gifts associated with joy, and I just want to touch on the one because I feel like it ties into that, is the gratitude component. And crossing something off your list, it's that relief and like, oh, maybe it's just more relief than gratitude for me. But I am grateful to have like a clean car, or
I
when I
do
clean
think
my
that they're
kitchen.
connected.
Okay, I'm not on an island with that then.
I think even relief is that sense of, the release or even kind of the accomplishment of something happening or kind of coming to fruition. Sometimes that relief can come from maybe even a darker place to a less dark place, but I also think it can come from a place of, like, accomplishment and all that stuff. uh, I think gratitude definitely plays into that, because then whenever you feel the relief, it's almost like, being grateful for where you're at. Here's some other things that play into the gifts: gratitude, happiness, maybe feelings of abundance or just abundance in general. Um, I like to think that, you know, one of the things that makes life really worth it is those moments of joy. And so being able to collect up all those as you travel through life, and even those small moments, like when somebody stops you on your way out of a pizza shop and says you have the most beautiful hair, like taking those,
Just a
collecting
random
that.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like something mom and I would do before one of us would go international for mom's job as a just on those mission trips, was go light up the world. Like, let's light up the world. Um, and just kind of collecting that feeling of abundance, I guess.
And there's kind of a swelling feeling as I'm leaning into the emotions of it that is a little bit expansive, like in a good way, not an explosion like anger, but like a swelling, kind of bursting, gushing, like a bubbling brook kind of like excitement, effervescence to it of um, feeling all bubbly and happy about something is a little bit of a lighter, but yet it could also have the depth, because joy can be something that really is connected with things that have been hard, but yet getting through or leaning into or being fully present for, or something that there's like this sense of depth to it at the same time, like a richness of it. Those are some of the ideas that come to mind for me around these emotions.
That richness to me is kind of like joy is the chocolate of the emotions.
Mm.
But probably in that way, it's easy to overdo it. Some of the limitations and run the show, I think this is important too. And I can identify this. Maybe we can all identify with something with like stifled joy. Maybe you're hitting the joy button too hard. And then it's not something that comes to me is when I graduated high school, my grandparents took me to Disney World for a week. And I went with my best friend, so it was even better. The first 4 or 5 days was awesome. By day 6 or 7, you're like, I've kind of, I've seen it all. I'm in Disney World, and so I can almost sort of feel that overwhelm almost kind of stifles as well. Or even in moments of scarcity, feeling that um, stifled joy where you're trying really hard in life and you're doing what you can, but some of those weights are still dragging you down, even in moments that you might feel joy normally.
I think, it's talking about just the idea of sometimes if we're not able to tap into that joy, if we can't feel it, we tend to see things more through a lens of scarcity or life feeling meaningless, that we don't, I guess, have the same level of, and we're going to get into this emotion next, but passion, like we don't have the same zest and excitement for life. It's more of, um, maybe it falls flat and it feels more meaningless, more scarcity, less ability to find the joy, which I think is worth mentioning here. And we may have talked about this before, but for some people, joy is a really hard emotion, because if they let that in and start to like it or want it or need it, then it could, be unpredictable or sometimes unattainable or unreachable, where maybe that's what feels completely unfamiliar to their brain, and more difficult to feel safe with joy, because they don't want to get their hopes up too high, or they don't want to feel too good about something and then fear losing it. Like, if I get too attached or if I like this emotion too much, I'm only going to be disappointed. I'll only be let down. And so I can't be fully vulnerable to that. We might find that in relationships or in jobs or in vacations or things that we just are afraid to feel the good because that might be too fleeting.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I immediately went to that mindset of, well, what if you have been joyful in the past and your spirit's been crushed, your heart's been smashed to pieces, and if that you've learned that over a period of time. A friend was telling me her dad would let her get a dog, and then once her dad was tired of this dog, she would come home from school one day and the dog would be gone. And this happened not once, not twice, but 4 or 5 times. And after repeated amounts of having been so excited, it's no wonder she became really reserved about, well, great, I have this dog, but can I really be excited about that? Now, that is a very traumatic situation, and I would certainly not expect this person to jump into joy at the next opportunity without some serious therapy. But I remember as a kid the joy of Christmas, and then the next day, that deep feeling of emptiness of, well, I've got all my toys and now I have to wait another year. Or I didn't get my toys. I had all this hope and this expectation, this premeditated joy, excitement, happiness, like, oh, I'm going to get that thing and it's going to be under the Christmas tree. And it never showed. I mean, I don't know. I'm thankful for my my hope as a kid, because as an adult, if I had to face, well, we face disappointment all the time, but it, that is no wonder people can be stifled, and where life feels meaningless, because joy can be so fleeting. And I feel like I have a light bulb going off and I'm not sure how to articulate it, but how all of these emotions make up the wholeness of life. And so you can have joy, but joy is not going to last. It can't last. We're humans. It can't go on. But you have to, so then it's going to drop. And then how do you manage that drop afterwards?
Almost like the flip side of the coin is disappointment. Like that could happen. That could come, like a wave of disappointment comes whenever it does shift or change. And so maybe the answer isn't how do we hold on to joy as much as how do we cultivate it? How do we learn how to find it again? Kind of like meditation is keep coming back, like we forget and we remember. Maybe for joy, it's when we start to go through that wax and wane, ebb and flow process, that we know how to find it again, that we look for the small things. I think the pathway is always in the small things. It's never that you have to win the lottery before life is going to be good. It's like, how do I find the joy in the sky or in nature or in just a moment of connection or the small things, and you see the goodness of that and you let that land, you let that come in and take that in. And when we know how to cultivate that and practice that, almost like a practice, like a gratitude practice or a exploration of, well, what else is here besides just the hard? We're able to find the difficult and the hard pretty quickly because it's protective of us to make sure that we're well aware of all the things going potentially wrong around us. We tend to have a default towards what's wrong or what's potentially unsafe or that we have to protect ourselves from. So it's almost like building the muscle to notice the good, look for the good, let the good land. And I am equating some of that good is, and goodness is joy, is the things that bring light and happiness and relief and excitement and zest for living, which gets us into our next emotion. If I can transition us to that, is passion.
I'm not ready.
Oh. Okay, circle back.
Just one last thing about this joy, the gratitude component. So you're going to always have the letdown from joy. Like you're going to have the come down. Like it's not sustainable. We've addressed that. But from all the reading I've done, which it's not as much as Julie's, but the key component to almost everything I read about mental health is gratitude, especially when discussing stressful situations, pain, fear, and sadness. Is this concept of finding your gratitude, and I think that is just instrumental to say thank you to your joy. If you've come down off of that happiness, that elation, and that excitement, I try, and I'm not good at it because I don't practice it enough, because it's a practice, like you said, Julie, of being grateful for that moment and treasuring that joy and saying thank you for that. That just strikes a chord with me. I think that is just so valuable to find everyday ways to show gratitude, to identify what you're grateful for. And that's just something we do a lot at work. That's a big wellness approach.
Nice.
So I just wanted to touch on that because I do think
I'm
that.
also not done with joy. I
Oh,
say
okay,
let's sit
goodness.
here for a minute because yeah, I think that a word that is missing from this list is contentment. I think for me joy and being content are equivalent in my mind, and I think that finding the moments where joy sometimes I think some folks are going through maybe a, almost you take a switch and you're going from 0 to 10 to 0 to 10 where I'm like, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm sad. And I think building like those gratitudes, even in your day to day, is almost like building a strong base. I remember whenever I was coming home from college, I felt a lot of emotion and a lot of hopelessness, uh, just like, yeah, life feels meaningless, stifled joy. And a conversation that mom and I had was building supports. How do you build those supports so that you can feel that supported? And that's where I connect a lot with joy. And I feel like the character in Inside Out, my main character is also joy because even just when I feel content, that's what I'm going toward. If I'm outside in a hammock, just feeling the breeze, that's joy to me.
Mm.
And even taking that moment where, yeah, I probably have some projects that I need to do, probably community roots episode I need to edit, whatever that may be, but still taking that moment to like be grateful for where I'm at. And I try to even remind myself that life is almost a climb and my experiences are part of my growth, and to find like contentment in my experiences. Or even I remember growing up not really taking the time to sit for a second. I just go from one thing to another, and I'm sure you can hear that even on our podcast, that I do tend to still bounce. But taking a moment and a pause is something that, even to me, is the times that I connect with joy. Something I love to do is go look at the moon, or to look at the sunset, or to just go, wow, the clouds are big today. It's such a strange thing, but I feel that building that base is great. Working it like a muscle is great, because I really feel like even getting to that contentment, even drinking that cool cup of water on a hot day is joy to me. But
And I
I'm
don't
not a
think it's about
scientist.
lessening your expectations, because big whoop, a cool cup of water on a hot day, like it's just a fleeting moment. But I think it's broadening your mind to what constitutes joy. I love that, Samuel. I think that's a great analogy.
Openness and receptivity of like, oh, it could be anything. It could be
Or
It's not
feeling the
just
breeze
winning.
on you while you're like you're in bed, or that moment that you lay in bed and you go, wow, actually I don't have to get up again and make sure the front door is locked, or that the light is off downstairs. I nailed it in one. I'm going to bed.
Winning.
I do see that. I think sometimes with joy, and maybe this is why it's also an avoidant topic, is because we're sometimes talking about that picturesque moment on Christmas,
Mm.
like, or that, like, that kiss at on New Year's. That's for, and when I do think like we've got a lot to be grateful for, and even taking those times to say, hey, I'm listening to a podcast with three folks that are like taking some time to build community with me. Like, that's worth like pausing and saying, you know hey, that's something I can build a little support on. Maybe I can rest here a second and kind of enjoy the shade before I keep walking.
I really love what you guys are saying about cultivating joy and creating that support. I don't think joy has to be an experience, a receptive experience, like something happens and then you feel joy. It sounds like what you're saying, Julie and Samuel, is that you can set yourself up for joy. Like you can create moments where you identify joy. Am I off on that, or
Like it's
So that's
already
what I'm
there.
doing.
It's already there if we bring our awareness to it,
Mm.
if we can see it. I don't think it's a forcing it. I do think, along with disappointment being something that can be part of the crash of the emotions changing, grief is another one that just comes to mind that sometimes um, the longing for joy or having this sense of happiness or excitement and not having it can bring grief, or remembering times that at, maybe were more happy or had more connection and then it doesn't, that can bring grief. So there is a sense of, being able to ride some of the waves of changing emotions, evolving emotions, or even complex emotions where we feel those very same things at the same time, even though they can feel so different. We can have both of them. There's complexity in that. And I think we need to make sure that as we're talking through processing about emotions, that we allow room for that. The both and.
I'm also curious even about, like, we talk about emotions being a way for us to notice. Is riding the wave a little too extreme? Like, if you notice your wife riding the wave of, I mean, I guess riding versus being absolutely capsized by the wave are two different things.
Mm.
But I do think, like, even in moments of joy where I feel the kind of, oh, I'm losing control in some ways, trying to grab on and regain control, take a breath, maybe even take the moment where you're like, hey, this is going to be a good moment. I want to sit back and just kind of remember it,
Mm.
kind of pause.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that can also help with,
Taking it in.
or just like where you feel like there was something there before that's not.
Mm.
Like your emotions are there to be noticed and ridden sometimes, but in a way that you're noticing them rather than becoming it. And so another pitch for Inside Out 1. Have you seen that, Sarah? The first one? Oh, you have so much.
No, thanks.
You've got
Thanks for
homework.
calling me out
Yeah,
in
right.
front of
In front of
everyone. I
God and
appreciate
everyone.
it.
Let's So-
Now everybody knows.
yeah, right. It is so good. It's a great this kind of will put if you haven't seen Inside Out 1 is a way that almost how do you cope with joy or the lack of joy, you know and so it really follows, like, some of us, including myself, it's something that I suffer from, is constantly chasing the joy. It's like, well, how do you notice all your emotions? How are they all there and what's their use? So
I will. This is my homework. I will watch it by the time we record next.
that's a lot of hours. It's so funny. It's worth it. But well, everyone, thanks so much for joining us. Great conversation. We have some other emotions still to work through. Good ones coming up, like passion and love. So looking forward to continue that conversation. I wanted to shout out Steve Dodge for the music, Alexander Wells for the logo. He's also doing a logo for me as well, and so definitely hit up Alex at A Wells Creates. But yeah, do we want to do gratitudes?
Makes sense.
Maybe we pick something small. Pick something small that you can
Mm.
notice in your day to day.
I have mine.
Go for it.
So oftentimes when I'm driving home from the barn, I drive west. And so I will drive in during the summer months, at least, drive into the sunset. And I love to see how the sun, when it's out, is hitting the clouds. And I'm not talking like a big spectacular sunset, but I'm always amazed at how there's a sun that exists and shines on these clouds, and how this artwork is just there all the time. Like it's
Yeah.
free. And is that too big? That kind of feels
No,
big.
that's great. It's not subscription based at all. It's great. What do you got, Mom?
Well, I am thinking about this could be on different levels. Peaches. Look, I wish we had this on video where you guys could see Samuel and Sarah's expression. Well, okay, where I'm thinking about this is that I had a peach this week. Sarah's about to weep. I had a peach this week. They are so juicy and so good. Like, I'm talking when they're really, really good. There is so much joy just bursting in that. Like, I love a good fresh peach. Why I said several levels is, and you had even said something to Sarah about like non-subscription level. Where I got the peach was from the CSA, which is like, it's not, I picked it off of a tree, but we get, and I am really thankful that we do have a delivery of fresh local fruits and vegetables. And they just taste so different than something that's been sitting in the store for a while. So the freshness of that, if anybody hasn't tried that, or going certainly to farmers markets and things like that, where you get the freshness, there's a whole lot of joy. So I guess maybe that's some homework for people over the summer too, is go to a farmer's market, consider
fresh.
looking into a CSA, or doing something where you can have some fresh fruit, especially fruit, but vegetables are fabulous too. But just like the goodness of that. and yeah, that's I was thinking about the peach I had actually just ate it yesterday.
The reason we're all laughing is because Mom started out the conversation today with a book about, Terrible Tim and the No Good Day, and about how he normally loves peaches, but not today. And I'm like, Mom, it's a joy episode. We can't start on this
and
vibe.
To be accurate, it is called Finn Throws a Fit, right?
Same thing. Terrible.
It was pretty close.
Good day.
I kind of nailed it, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
You got it pretty good. It's the most adorable little picture in the beginning of Finn likes peaches usually, but maybe that inspired me. That little bit of free association. It was rumbling around in my brain a little bit, like, oh, peaches are good, and oh, by the way, I had a great peach yesterday, and so I'm gonna be really thankful for juicy peaches.
I dig it. And that's also a thing, even as we get into the summer, some of our fruits and vegetables are more fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And then, hey, if you're listening to this and it's winter where you are, it's a good time to remember in summer how to enjoy the fresh veggies and fruits. I sometimes do that when it's winter and I'm like, man, that tomato in summer is going to taste great. I can't wait until that comes. But, I'm going to answer... Oh, I'll just say real quick, I've really liked birds, and I saw a male bird, cardinal, break apart little sunflower seeds and then feed it to his partner cardinal, like beak to beak. And so she was just following him around as he was finding all these sunflower seeds. It was super adorable. And it was during my work day. Yeah.
That is super adorable.
And like 5 or 6 pieces of sunflowers. Like this wasn't just a one-off. He was definitely feeding her. So anyway, well, folks, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here. Yeah, we've got a lot of content. Go back, watch Inside Out 1 and 2. Listen to our episodes on emotion. And yeah, see you next time.